And we are back with day 3 of the Flip Your Script bLU Talks experience. I'm super excited to be here. This is a Flip Your Script moment, I will tell you that for sure. Corey is presently preoccupied, so I'm here ready to welcome our 2 amazing guests, Jessica Rosin and Katrina. I'm not sure how to actually pronounce, I would say Katrina Breau. We have a registered, so Jessica Rosin is a registered psychologist and Katrina Breau is a healthy brain expert. So we're going to talk about the emotional, physical, and spiritual side of things today. And my name is Elise Rothman. I am the founder of Flip Your Script Coaching and also the owner and founder of Manatee Landing Retreat, a beautiful everyday retreat where you can retreat from your everyday in Weeki Wachee, Florida. You can come and flip your script in real time with us. It's an amazing, amazing destination, and we're super excited to have that available for people who are ready to make some changes in their life and just come and enjoy and have fun. So while we're waiting for Jessica to get on, what I thought we could do today is some hands-on EFT. So I am the founder of Flip Your Script Coaching, and what that means is I'm a mindset architect. I help you reframe where and how your mind is set. And not only that, we are able to then what I call stage this new mindset with the thoughts and mind seeds that when you think them and focus on them, they start to grow a life you love. So one of the things I talk about often with my clients and to audiences alike is that our perspective is our reality. Every single time, hands down, like gravity, the way that we perceive things is the reality that we live. And that reality is formed on a belief. And the beautiful thing about a belief is it starts with a thought. A belief is a chronic thought that we think over and over and over again until it becomes so ingrained in who we are and how we think, it becomes a belief. So the thought becomes the belief becomes our perspective, the perspective becomes our reality. So if we want to start to reframe where our mind is set, because I talk about this with Corey all the time, we all have mindsets. Everybody has a mindset. We all have that in common. But where is our mind set? And the first step to recognizing where our mind is set is how we actually physically feel, how our body-mind responds to a belief or a thought that we have. So while we're waiting for Jessica to hop on, I'm thinking that we can do some interactive hands-on tapping. So I'm an emotional freedom practitioner, and what that means is that we get down to the root, or what I call the subconscious hard drive, of where all these old files lie. Okay, because we have files and files and files. We have memories and memories and memories and memories. We have beliefs and beliefs and beliefs and beliefs. And that stems from childhood. I call it from conception to 7. Some people say 0 to 7, to teen, to the 20s. We all have a version of ourselves that shows up in certain situations. So again, so for those of you who know what EFT is, it's tapping or emotional freedom technique. And what it does is we work on the meridians and we get to the emotional root, the feeling of what comes up when we think of something. We have great memories where we can think about them and feel excited and feel that love when we met the love of our life or saw our child for the first time, or we're thinking even about going on vacation, right? A lot of times, 75% of the time, what we think about and getting excited about the thing is way better than the thing itself. I'm sure you all can relate to that, right? How many times have you been super excited about doing something or having something, and then you get it and you're like, oh my God, this is a lot of work. Really, this is not how I thought I would feel in the doing or the having of it. So if we can evoke that feeling over and over again, it's like we're actually there. Jessica, are you there? Somebody's there. Oh, hello. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, good. How about you?
I'm doing really, really well. This is Jessica. Jessica, I'm just going to finish up my little talk about, EFT and memories. And this is probably resonates with what you do as well. I know you do, is it EMDR? And you kind of work on that emotional, energetic route as well.
Absolutely. EMDR, motion focused therapy.
Yes. So I'm just going to kind of finish it up. And what I'd like all of our viewers and also the viewers that are going to watch the replay to do is right now, think of a belief or something that you have going on in your life, okay, that brings up for you. And this is where you can feel it in your gut, in your chest, in your throat, or in your head, or actually could be even a physical pain that shows up. That chronically, when you think of this or when you experience this, this shows up. And at the end of today, I'd like to do some actually hands-on EFT, some tapping, so we can clear some of that and you can feel the physical relief before we leave the show. Isn't that the best, right? We can talk about changing our mindset and what we need to do, but what I love to do, especially in front of my audiences, is I love that hands-on experience. If you got pain, and actually if you have physical pain, I know it's probably not pleasant for you, but it's better for me, because if you can give your pain a number and then we can alleviate some of that physical pain as well, the relief is what we're going for. We're going for relief in anything that we do. We want to feel that ease, that relief, that peace within us. So that being said, I think this is the perfect tie-in to introduce Jessica Rosin. Is it Rosin or Rosin?
Rosin.
Rosin, Jessica Rosin. I know that you're a registered psychologist. I did a little bit of background on you, but what we like to do here on the bLU Talks Flip Your Script stage is have you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your journey and how you ended up here today, actually.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. A little bit about myself. I mean, right now, as you said, I'm a registered psychologist. I'm also a relationship weaver, and part of a family. I have my partner. I have my 3 kids, and a lot of what's kind of brought me today to this date as relationship weaver has a lot to do with kind of like the beginning. When you talk about psychology, we always go back into childhood. Really, we like to think future, we like to think positive, but it's so important for us to be connected to our childhood, where we came from, where a lot of our patterns actually began. And for me, my story actually really begins when I was training as a psychologist, kind of those early days when I was working with different people and I was hearing a large volume of different stories. I was working with a lot of different people and just noticing the different sorts of traumas that they experienced throughout their life and the great effects that it had on them. And for myself, it really was a moment for me to kind of flip and look back on myself and kind
Flip
of
your
go,
script, so to speak.
yeah, that definitely came at some point for sure. But it was like, this moment of self-awareness to go, you know what, I've really come from a lot of trauma myself. I've come from a lot of different sorts of experiences. And it was kind of just a moment of looking back in time and going, what have I been through throughout my life that has affected me in certain ways that perhaps I'm even unaware of? And it was really shocking, actually, when I took that moment. And then what followed was like many moments, hours, years of looking deep within and noticing the sorts of experience I had as a child with my parents, with my dad, who's an alcoholic and he was a violent man. And, with us as kids and my mom finally finding that space, that strength within her for us to leave and then bring us into the city. We kind of went from the farm, and the farm as a family, quite isolated, and then into the big city.
So
and
when
this
you
was at
say big
one,
city, where are you? You're in Canada, right?
yeah, I'm in Canada, Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, it was a moment of actually, for me as a kid, I was quite excited. I was excited about the move. I know kids can have mixed feelings about that sort of thing, but for me, it was about kind of a freedom and a sense of safety that we were headed towards. And what I quickly found myself though in was, entering into new schools and new people. And for me, not really being heavily socialized, it was quite an awkward experience and finding myself in positions of being bullied and picked on and just feeling like quite anxious. When I look back, just realizing the amount of anxiety that I experienced and fear, really at the end of the day, the fear that I experienced when it came to people. and just over time, finding myself kind of moving throughout the years and eventually in relationships with different boys and different men. And I really had to look at what really was my relationship pattern with these men, and what kind of experience did I have? How comfortable was I with them? Was I able to really express myself? And unfortunately, what I quickly discovered was I wasn't. And if anything, there was ways in which I was pushed down more, and I didn't have a voice. I couldn't find my voice. And at the time, actually, come to think of it, when I was in my psychology training, I was married. I was married with 3 young kids. And again, it was this moment of looking like, what kind of relationship am I in? What kind of life am I leading? And on the outside, it actually looks really great. Kind of moving forward with my career, highly successful, even throughout the years with academically, I really put a lot of time into school. It was that area that I kind of put my energy into. And, married, had a home, 3 kids, had the yard that I always wanted for my kids. It was actually a life that even my friends and family thought that was quite successful and something that I should be extremely happy with. But when I looked at my marriage and the relationship with my husband, it was just those moments of noticing, wow, we really don't connect very much. We really don't talk very often. He actually at the time was an alcoholic and was quite unavailable. And it was really just me and the kids and me pursuing, my career and my schooling. But I was quite alone, and deep down inside felt really crappy about myself, had like extremely low self-confidence. And this was a real wake up call to me. It was just amazing to realize that all those years, it was almost like survival mode, kind of surviving, going through the motions, checking off the boxes that basically we're taught that we're supposed to check off. And that's what makes us a successful and happy life. And for me, it was kind of really noticing on a body level, kind of bringing in the emotion focus piece on a
Mm-hmm.
body level. How am I really feeling? And it was just this extremely deep feeling of depression, actually. If I really sat back and I looked at it. And, there was this one pivotal moment for me, actually. And I was in my garage at the time. I always seem to remember the setting of this.
I always
And
like to ask how old. Like for me, like as I'm hearing a story, like I want to know how old you were when you moved to the city. I want to know how old you are when you started studying psychology. Like how old were you when you were married? Like so how old were you when you were in your garage at least? Let's
when I
start
was in my
there.
garage, I want to place myself at about 30.
Okay. This way I have a visual. You know what I mean? For my own
Yeah,
personal, like since you're taking me on a journey, I want to know how old you were.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I want to say around 30, could have been 31, something like that. Yeah. And just really sitting there and, so kind of feeling pretty good, with where I was at in my life at that age. But in the garage, it was like all of this was really kind of adding up, kind of taking on. It was as though I went through these years without fully realizing everything that had happened to me in my life, and deep down inside how I really felt about it. And it came to me like in a real sort of rush. And I
Mm-hmm.
kept digging and digging. And the more I dug, the worse I felt about myself, though. The worse that I was kind of thinking, if I've come from so much bad, kind of so many, not good experiences, and so many experiences that basically reinforced for me my unworthiness, reinforced for me in ways that I wasn't good, I wasn't valuable, I wasn't important. My own husband didn't really want to spend time with me, or the kids. And I actually got to a place of wanting to kill myself. I just
Mm.
sat there in the garage. I actually had my eyes closed, and just was going, there's just really nothing. I'm nothing. That moment of like, I am nothing.
Yes.
And it was this moment when there was like almost like, it's difficult to describe, but there was just this incoming sort of message, a part of me, as something that came to me. And it was like, wait a minute. If I'm so bad, if I am so nothing, how have I come this far?
Mm-hmm.
How have I been able to, do the sort of schooling that I have, socialize enough, just socialize enough to be able to make myself get to the point where I was when it came to certain friends, certain family members, being in a sort of a relationship. I was at this place and this point again professionally as well, where I was noticing people weren't treating me the same way that I had been treated for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this moment of being able to see this glimpse, this kind of glitter of something more, something different about me than what
Mm-hmm.
all of that has led me to believe about myself. So it was a
Right.
real shifting point for me.
We call it a flip. It was an aha. It was a perspective shift. Because life is,
Absolutely.
and it was what I was talking about. I don't know if you were able to catch a little bit of it. Like I was winging it, doing my improv before you showed up. I'm talking about like our perspective is our reality.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just is. Like it's every single time the way that we're perceiving the world that we're looking through the lens of, right? Our own eyes, the lens of our own beliefs, our own truths, our own thoughts is the reality that we're living in. We're the star of that show, right? And you had a perspective shift and your whole reality changed in the garage. I mean, to me that's one of those exciting aha moments.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
one thought, right? It was one awareness and one perspective shift that changed everything.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely everything. And it changed the way I saw myself. It changed the way I saw my situation, my circumstances. It changed the way I saw the world, even,
Yeah,
looking out of the garage. Yeah.
I get excited about that because
Mm-hmm.
those are the game-changing moments, the life-changing moments. And so when you had that aha moment in the garage, and so then what started to unfold? Because what I find in my life and also in the lives of my clients and people, even just friends and family, is when our perspective starts to shift, everything starts showing up differently. Then there's a whole other set of challenges. When everything starts to show up the way you want it, you got to learn how to what I call ride the wave. You have to ride the wave of manifestation, right? Because that's a whole other thing that we can talk about another time. But what started to show up differently for you in that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the biggest things for me was the way that I was tuning into myself. That
Mm-hmm.
was probably one of the biggest places that I started with. I was tuning into myself, tuning into my body, noticing what it was telling me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing that was extremely significant for me is this real examination about who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Um, where am I going? I had those three questions. Who am I? Where am I going? And who am I bringing with me?
Oh, I like the third one.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was really significant for me, especially looking at my marriage and my relationship, which is extremely scary. I mean, this is something that you
How old
can't
were your kids at
unsee.
that time? You know, I like the little details. So how old were your children? So you have three kids. You're like 31 in the garage. You're like contemplating life, having this aha moment that you can't ignore because now you can't unknow what you now know.
Yeah, absolutely. My kids, this is all guesstimations, but I would
It's
say
okay. We
somewhere
don't really
around,
know, but just on a roundabout.
they're young, like 6, 4, and 2.
Okay. Young.
Yeah, yeah,
The
very young
trifecta
kids.
age.
Yes, yeah.
Now you were already studying at this time, right?
Hmm.
So what inspired you to go into psychology, right? Because that's also like something inspired that action too, right? Like there must have
Yeah,
been an interest
absolutely.
or a curiosity on some level.
What's interesting is I always recall that I had a shifting point around 12 years old. Since I've been 12, that I knew I was going to be a psychologist. It was just,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I'm going to do. It actually has been a driving force for me throughout some of the difficult times in my high school years, especially, that I had this basically beacon. This is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing. I didn't really put a lot of questioning or thought into it. It was as though this is
You
what I'm
just
going to
knew.
do. I just knew. And, I do wonder about it sometimes. And of course, as kids going through a divorce and separation, I did have exposure to some psychologists through the divorce settlement. But
Right.
it was, there wasn't actually a moment in my conscious awareness that this is what I'm going to do. And this is exactly what I'm going to, why I'm going to do it. It was just a knowing. And in a lot of ways, it was a lot of just who I am and the way my personality is. And, for example, and a lot of that was born from some of the traumatic experiences, from the traumatic environments, more specifically. And so for me, being in, and this happens for a lot of people, when you're in an unsafe environment, you really turn inward. You turn to your imagination. You spend a lot more time in nature, and you spend a lot of time observing people, right? A lot of time observing, for example, especially people who you're afraid of, you're going to be observing, you're going to be noticing. And so there was just from a young age, this is really just what I did with people was I noticed, what they're going to do, how people talk, what's kind of behind what their motivations. And so I already started really young noticing patterns in that way.
Yes, and actually I can really, it's funny that you said that because I haven't really thought about it that much. I didn't go into psychology in the traditional sense, but as a mindset architect and studying EFT and understanding and having this ability, this like innate ability, almost like a knowing when I was a kid that, I don't know, like I knew I would work with children. Now I didn't realize I was going to be working with inner children as well. Chronological age is irrelevant really to me because I'm always end up working with a child anyway. But just kind of knowing, like having that knowing and not knowing really where it's coming from. But also knowing, I think too, as a child, you're bringing up all of these, memories, going through a divorce, going through my parents' divorce at the age of 7, realizing like how crushing that was. Just the way that I felt in relationship to what was happening, not so much observing them or outside of myself, but observing myself in the situation.
Yeah.
And recognizing that, wow, that really sucks, and I just had this knowing that I could help people through that process so it wouldn't suck so much and they could find a way actually to find themselves in that because it really was my parents' choice. They were going through their own story, doing the best that they can with where they were and what they knew. And even, coming from an abusive family, the abusive parent, it's not like we condone their actions, but they're really doing the best they can with where they are and what they know, even though it doesn't seem like that to a child. And so having that new awareness and understanding, I'm sure helped you through a lot of that trauma as well. So you said that you're a relationship weaver. That's the first time I've heard that term, and I really love it because I love that creative way of expressing who we are and what we do. So can you tell us a little bit more about like your ability to weave help people weave their relationships? Is it with themselves? Is it within couples? There's many different relationships that we have.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so for me, my journey it was something that I really noticed over time is how much the intimate relationships or relationships with partners has a lot to do with the unfolding of my own story, a lot to do with me diving even deeper into my own wounds, me diving even deeper into my own gifts, my wholeness, especially is something that's really been cultivated through pleasant and unpleasant experiences. In a lot of ways, the unpleasant experiences that can happen in relationships just kind of can birth something new within that. And so just noticing my own story and my own experiences and my own growth, my own journey because of this really brought a lot of my own kind of model, my own theory, my own model when it comes to relationships and what sorts of ingredients can contribute to a certain sort of healthy relationship. And I put it healthy in kind of quotation marks because there's all different ways we can consider what healthy actually means.
Right. It's so personal.
It's very personal. Absolutely. And so for me, it's about looking at kind of the relationship as 3 different bodies. And so we have the relationship when it comes to each individual, so each body, and body being the entirety of the person.
Right.
And then the third one is the relationship body. And this is really different than a lot of people.
Can you repeat number 1 again? So number 1 is the first
number one is each individual. So 1 individual, 2 individual, then the relationship as the third.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And,
Following.
and, this, and this is really different than a lot of people where they can consider the idea of relationship as like two kind of combine in this way. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, I really prioritize looking at each as the individual pieces,
And what,
um, and really looking at that each personal journey of each individual, just how important that is. And I think that's something that's so overlooked or kind of like acknowledged, but then we kind of move on. Or a lot of people come to couples counseling and relationship therapy, and they just really want to focus on relationship and how we mingle, what we do here. But first, we have to really look at each individual's experiences, journey, and story, and the way and patterns, and the way that then
mm-hmm.
contributes to this third body that's created by the contribution of each individual, but also everything else around it. It's its own entity. It's not just 1 + 1 is 2. It's actually its own separate sort of thing.
I love that you've taken that approach, because oftentimes, somebody who's doing, working in couples therapy, they do work with a couple. I personally never work with my couples together. They're always individual, and then they take their journey as these well-beings and find their way together. And I love that you take that next step where you say, okay, we're going to be here and here. Let's figure out who you are. Come in as two whole people, and then you bring them together. I like that third step. I think that could be very powerful.
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely
powerful.
it is. And there's a way, when we think about the weaving of it, it is the weaving of each
Mhm.
individual story, and the weaving of each individual story and the way that interacts and connects as the relationship. But,
Right,
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is even when we kind of feel like we're there, it's like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. We have to remember we're still two different individuals. There's a lot of people that experience almost like a lack of freedom in relation. There's an ownership thing that's happened. There's expectations, which is a
mm,
really big thing. And, the more and more that I continue to work with this, it's heading into this new type of idea of like, what is relationship really all
mhm,
about? We have
right,
kind of the older models, and in a lot of ways, the older models based on more like survival mode. Like, people were together in a lot of ways to be able to survive, to have
right,
enough money, to have enough food, to have shelter. And that really contributed to why we're making this decision to be together and why we're making decisions to never be apart, like to not separate.
right,
Um, and now there's a lot for a lot of cultures and a lot of societies, that's not as much as the motivator to stay together because we financially need to.
mhm,
Instead, there's kind of like, well, then why are we together? People are actually looking at this a little bit more. Am I
right.
actually happy? Do I need to stay with this if I'm not happy or fulfilled? And so that's when we start to tease that apart more.
It's interesting because, we all have our own personal journey, and I love how things start to show up in my life. And I'm on a journey right now. I'm actually in Maine. I live in Florida, and I have my RV, and I've been traveling for about a month, and it is a journey on my own. And my fiance and I have both decided that, this is the time that we're taking to kind of, what he calls it, finding Elliot. His name is Elliot, finding Elliot. And this is also, it's a time to discover, like, where are we at? We're creating these amazing things, these retreats where people's lives are changing and they're loving every minute of it. Are we loving every minute of it together? Right. And it's really, really important to take that time. And we had a guest on yesterday, and we were talking about happiness is a state of, we are happiness. And when we're disconnected from that, or out of alignment, as I call it, from that happiness, we could use the relationship as a reason. But what I'm personally recognizing for myself in the relationship, and maybe this is something that resonates with you as well when you were in the garage having that aha moment, is that whatever is coming up in me, this lack of feeling happy, or these questioning, or the sadness that might be had been lying dormant, whatever's coming up for me is already in me. He's just this beautiful gift, even though frustrating at times. Love you anyway, Elliot, but frustrating at times, letting me know that it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So pointing my finger and saying I'm unhappy because of this, that's not sustainable. I'm unhappy because the situation's bringing up something in me that's already in me, right? That's already taking up space, that could be filled with more inner peace or contentment, or, just being happy because I'm looking at the world as a happy person. So do you find that too on your own personal journey, but do you also see that awareness show up with your clients, or patients? I'm not sure what the term is
Mhm.
since you're a psychologist. Well, I work with a lot of coaches, so we don't have patients, we have clients. That there's an awareness that really my unhappiness is not coming from anything but within myself, or my, mistrust or insecurities or whatever it is that's holding space. But whatever's showing up is providing me this mirror and this opportunity for me to recognize that this stuff is within me already. Nobody's putting it in me, right? Nobody's like shoving anger in me or insecurities in me, but it's already there, and it's an opportunity to kind of go within and say, where's this coming from? How old is it? How old is this, crap that's still hanging out, within me? What age am I right now? That's a big question that I ask myself and my clients. How old is this? How old do I feel right now? I'm 17. You're bringing out the 17-year-old in me that wasn't very happy with herself, or the 5-year-old who doesn't want to be abandoned. Or do you find that there are those different parts of ourselves that show up in situations?
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you brought that up too, because that is a module, like a part of our work that we really do when it comes to working with relationships. We're looking at the different parts of ourselves. We even have names for them. I actually have a relationship archetype assessment that I have online
I
for people
love
to
it.
take. Yes, exactly. And so that you can discover what sorts of archetypes, what sort of parts of yourself are more active, right? Kind of are stronger, louder, which ones are
Mm-hmm.
a little less. And that's different archetypes and different parts of ourselves that are protective, can hold us back. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also parts of ourselves that help us to grow, and that where we can show up more fully and more in our wholeness for ourselves. So we want to get a sense of what parts of ourself are more active and inactive for us, and which ones kind of get triggered up, do we get hijacked by in
Mm-hmm.
our partnership, for example.
Right.
And quite often with couples, what you can do is begin to see which parts of themselves end up communicating more with each other than other
Yes,
parts of ourselves.
exactly. And sometimes I'm like, do you know that, I mean, and I work separately, but I'll have the conversation. Do you know that both of your 13-year-olds are in this marriage? Both of
Yes.
your 15-year-olds are the ones that are constantly arguing with each other. So your
Yeah,
teenage versions of yourself are the ones having this relationship. Like, are you ready to like
absolutely.
let them have the control, or do you want, the 30, 40, 50-year-old version of yourself to show up and say, hey, wait a second, you know what? I'm ready to make this happen in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, what can be really difficult for, I almost say most couples, because a lot of couples haven't really looked at this, is there's this moment when they discover that they made the decisions to be in their relationship from a younger part of themselves.
Right.
That decision, that choice, what feels like a choice that they made, their selection of, this is who I want to be with for the rest of my life kind of idea, was motivated. If it came from a younger, less developed, maybe less mature part of themselves, was motivated by less mature needs and desires and motivations. So it kind of translates in the unspoken contract or agreement that we have in this relationship is based on you act from a 15-year-old position and I act from a 13-year-old. And this is what keeps us, this is what sustains us actually. This is what keeps us going.
Exactly.
And it can be really heartbreaking, because then once we realize something like this, it's like it is one of those flipping the script or those shifting moments of, wow, like who are you then? Who am I? Right. That's
Mm-hmm.
when this real discovery process even reflects my own personal story with it. Like, and what sorts of decisions have I made to choose you, to be with you, in order just to keep myself safe, as opposed to perhaps growing and expanding and being that fuller person that I'm beginning to see more about me.
Yes.
So it's,
So
yeah.
profound. It really, really is profound. And at the same time, though, there's this opportunity that I feel like we have within that whole kind of scene, right? Because it's a scene in our movie of life, to take a look at it and say, okay, so if this is where I'm at and this is where you're at, and I can now recognize that it isn't the me that's showing up, and start to heal those things within those versions, there is a beautiful opportunity to grow together. There,
Very good.
because we don't even know who the other version is. Like, I don't know your 40-year-old version that really could be showing up, because I've been hanging out with your 15-year-old all this time. And I think another thing too is, this whole idea of relationships and love, and even with family and kids and friends, the reason that I believe, this is personal, that we're attracted to certain relationships is, and we love the person or the relationship, is because we love the version of us that shows up in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's how we feel about ourselves, who's the version of us that's showing up. Oh, you're my best friend because I love how I feel when I hang out with you, right? Or I'm in love with you because I really love the version of myself that's showing up. And sometimes that gets lost, of course. But I know that in my own journey right now, on this journey that I'm on right now, one of the things that Elliot and I both discovered together is that, sometimes in our interactions, we don't like the versions of ourselves that show up. It's not our intention. It just, this version of us is showing up, and we don't like who we are or how we feel when that version shows up. And that's what we get to look at. Not that you did this to me and you did that to me. Like, we're able to now say, and this is kind of where we're at, I'm sharing like a real-time, real-life experience, is that both of us agree, which is great, because we both agree we don't like who we are when we're showing up in interactions, certain interactions with each other. So now what do we do, right? Not just become the best version for ourselves, but if we're really in this, then figure out how to be the best version for the other person as well, while still retaining who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It absolutely makes a lot of sense. And, kind of even going back to what you were saying too, is like this opportunity, having this awareness, and that's the first step to a change, is about, recognizing that this is where we're at and we have this opportunity now to do something different. And there's a decision point within that. And so when you have two people that kind of awaken to this, and I think that a lot of people experience that. Actually, I hear a lot of women, it happens for men as well, but a lot of women really talk about when they're awakening more and they're realizing some of this, they're finding that their husbands aren't, or their partners aren't. And that's such a difficult situation for anybody. It's a really alone feeling. And this speaks to my personal story back when I was in the garage and in my marriage at the time, of kind of realizing these things for me, realizing these different parts of me showing up or not showing up. And in my case, my husband chose to not continue on with that journey in that way. Meaning that not wanting to kind of take that opportunity. And it really puts people in that kind of position of, well, then what? What do I do with that? And I really find it so important to empower people to be able to kind of continue to follow their journey and follow their story with that, to be able to make those decisions that won't hold them back in the ultimate growth and individuation of themselves. And so it's a really difficult kind of position, but I think people out of fear, and because it's a really scary situation,
like, what's going to happen?
Exactly. I would choose to kind of maybe, I'm just going to like put my head back in the sand. I'm just going to, kind of continue on and not really touch this anymore because, for example, my partner doesn't really want to look into that. Whereas we fast forward to the present for myself now at age 42, I'm in a relationship for the last, 7 years, where the opportunities, are really embraced, as you're describing for yourself as well, where basically when we notice triggers, when we notice different parts of ourselves, it's really holding that bigger picture of the story that's continuing to unfold of our own individual journeys. But in a lot of ways, the way the relationship helps to bring that up, helps to be able to bring it forward. But we have something more. It's almost like at times it can feel like a crisis. You can feel like, oh my God, things aren't going well like they were going. But each time, if both people are willing to say yes again and again to that opportunity, it's just amazing. And this is what I find so beautiful about the magic of relationships, is what can be birthed from that. what can be birthed from these moments of, sometimes you can feel stuck, or it can feel like, you know what, we don't like each other, or whatever the situation is. And when you lean into it more, that's where the true growth happens. That's where that real growing
Right.
of self can happen.
Well, and actually, not can, it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, like gravity, it does.
It just does.
It just starts to, like, it presents itself, you know, and
Yeah.
and present is a present, right? It starts to present itself, like, and so it's beautiful. I know Corey hopped on because we're coming to a close, and I have to tell you, I adore you, and I would love to stay in contact, and I want to find out where I personally can get the archetype download. So maybe that's where we can start too. Where can people find you? Like, just to start a conversation about, you know, maybe finding out how to weave the relationship within themselves and in their partnership.
Absolutely. So I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and I also have my website, jessicarosinpsychology.com. And so there's a lot of resources actually that are there on my website, as well as the free relationship archetype assessment.
I love that. And do you use that assessment when working with your patients?
Oh, for sure.
Clients or patients? Are they patients?
I call them clients.
Okay, you do. Okay.
Clients with, yeah.
In working with your clients. Okay, so also so two things. If you could put that in the comments, at least on the Flip Your Script Blue Talks group on Facebook, that would be great. So people who are watching the replay can find you. Okay. And then also, I like to ask this question, and then this is in relationship to the whole flipping your script concept. I believe that we have thought weeds and mind seeds. And the mind seeds are what we can use to replace once we pull a thought weed and we know that that's not how we want to think anymore, or this is not working for us, right? Sometimes people have a really hard time figuring out what it is they do want, because we spent so much time trying to get rid of what we don't want that we've lost focus. So if you could share maybe a mind seed or a thought or a perspective with our audience and our future audience, what would that one maybe perspective shift that they could plant in place of be?
I have many.
Okay,
but,
pick your favorite.
One that comes to mind right now is I absolutely deserve the fully exciting, robust relationship that I really desire, that I truly desire.
Okay, so one more time. Well, okay, so so you're saying that everybody deserves the best version of themselves and the happiest relationship that they could have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Whether you believe it or not, you deserve it, right? Yeah. You don't even have to believe that you deserve it at the time, but just know that you deserve it. And I think that those things show up once we kind of can get into that. I deserve it, even though maybe I don't know that I do, because it takes the pressure off. It kind of clears the path a little bit more for it to show up.
It does. It really is another way of saying yes.
Exactly. Well, it was such a pleasure getting to share this time with you. Corey, we kind of missed you, but I love you. But I think we did good, right?
Oh, yeah. It was great. It was so wonderful to meet you, too.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know that our paths will cross again, and I'll stay in touch for sure. How was your time away, Corey?
It was interesting.
Okay. Leave it at that.
But I was going to say, too, Jessica, I definitely want to have an opportunity to interview you in the near future as well. So let's call it a to be continued. Whenever we set the schedule for this event, we set it about, I think, 3 weeks or a month ago, maybe a little more. But like 4 months ago, in my calendar was locked 3 things this week that I couldn't then change because they were locked in so far. And it just happened that 2 of them landed today. But the weird irony is we had some hiccups with the technology on the other interview. And so we went through the hiccups for about 15 minutes, and then we decided to reschedule. So,
oh, great.
And on top of that, at least I'm going to be with you till the end, because my second person messaged me and said the Wi-Fi is down in his neighborhood for the first time in his life.
Look at that.
So we moved that one to next week at this exact same time when I don't have the Flip Your Script. So Jessica, that's all to say that if you're with your permission, I'll call it a to be continued, and maybe I'll bring you on either for my podcast, or I know Elise might want to bring you on for the Flip Your Script Fridays.
Yeah, for sure.
Again. So lots of interview opportunities still to come is the point.
Okay,
Awesome.
before we let you go though, this is something that I introduced at the beginning, Corey, when you weren't there, is that I would like to do a quick little tapping session, an EFT session with anyone who's watching and or for the replay. So Jessica, if you have something that keeps popping up for you that you can physically feel is holding you back on some level, like whether you feel it in your gut, your chest, your throat, or in your head, I'm going to do a quick little, like what I call a tapping rant or a tapping session at the end, just a quick 3-minute. So feel free to hop back on or hang out.
Okay, good. That sounds awesome.
Very cool. Well, like I said, Jessica, I didn't get to be here for most of the interview, but I know it was a pleasure, and I know you and Elise crushed it, and I'll get a chance to watch it later, which is exciting because I get to watch from the outside looking in. But thank you so much for being you. Thank you for showing up. You've been a big part of our bLU Talks community since pretty much the start, and I don't anticipate that changing. We'll keep spreading the word and waving the flag for all the great things you're doing. And like I said, feel free to circle back with me and hold me accountable that I want to make it a to be continued and bring you back on.
Oh, great. Thanks so much, Corey. I look forward to it.
See you later.
Thanks so much,
Bye.
Jessica. We'll let you run. And then, Elise, if you're okay with it, how about, since you're going to do a tapping at the end, I'll bring our second guest right on. Is that okay?
Yeah, just a few minutes at the end since I started that way. Like I want to, do the bookends like we did the last time.
Yeah, and I want to get a chance to tap. Can I tap, like follow along with what you're doing?
Absolutely, totally. That would be the best because this way we can, be in real time.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So our next guest, today we have just two, which is great because it means we get to spotlight and focus on two people. I mean, it depends. I always look at the positive of every situation. So,
and then we'll have time to do our little tap at the end.
Yes, absolutely. So Katrina Breau, so happy to have you here. And Katrina, I always ask you this, so hopefully I didn't do it wrong this time, but do you pronounce your last name that way?
Breau like snow.
Okay, so I did pronounce it correctly. I thought so.
I don't know if I did. But anyway, now I'll know.
Now you'll know. Breau like snow.
And so, nice meeting you, by the way.
You too.
Katrina Breau like snow. So excited to have you here today. So happy to have you here. And I've known Katrina for a while now. She's been a part of the bLU Talks brand for a while as well. So Katrina, so excited to bring you on. And then I think I'll ask you, or I'd love to ask you, what we ask every guest we bring on to the show for the first time. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory for those that may be discovering you for the first time today?
Like me.
Like Elise.
Certainly. Well, my backstory is very much a tapestry of changes and learning experiences, that's for sure. A little bit about sort of my childhood aspects I'll start with. As a young child, by the time I was 11 years old, both my parents were married and divorced multiple times with a lot of severe layers of traumas and emotional issues. And on top of that, I was also a child in the school system that had epilepsy back in the early 70s when they didn't really want someone like me in the school system. So they had done a petition to have my desk removed to the back of the room. And so the other children would not catch this from me, which of course would never fly today. But along with that, in many of the broken foundations that I had, not only in my home environments, but also then being removed and put into the foster care system, which was good sometimes, also not so good the other times. And a lot of layers of different things that happened in sort of the childhood, where that also becomes very much our foundation of beliefs about ourselves as well. Mm-hmm. And for me, this was something that was really something I needed to deal with along my journey as well, because always being told, you can't ride a bike because you have this. You can't go swimming because you have this. And all of the you can'ts and you can'ts, and rising above those limitations that were being placed in there. And along my educational journey and complications there, as I was always moved along the grades, just sort of to the next. And when I got up to high school, I still wasn't able to read. And then my foster parent at the time realized how far back I really was in my academics, and then went to the school board system and really said, listen, you owe this girl an education. And
Good for them.
and so then they really were, advocates for me, saying this is wrong. And so then they had a teacher come into our home out on an acreage and spend almost a year with me, moving me from a grade 3 level education up to grade 12, and really giving me the ability to realize that although I had these neurological complications, I really did have the ability to grasp and learn material when I believed that I didn't. And
It's all about that belief.
it is, the automatic negative thoughts that are continuing in layers. And for me, it really was a lasagna effect. And then, and also with all of that negativity and lack of self-esteem, a lot of that really snowballed into many other things as well. As a teen, I had been raped as a teen and ended up being pregnant, had an abortion, not only living with those, all different layers, always needing to decide that, although I'm knocked down again, it's me who has to choose to make the change. It's me who has to choose to get up and rise from whatever is happening along my journey. And many times, I would hit a brick wall 10 times before I would learn to walk around it and really get a embrace of that. And then, I once I realized I had the ability to change, when I became more of an adult, married. I've been married to my husband for almost 35 years now, and which was very odd for my
Wait
parents.
a second. How old are you? That's crazy. You don't even look more than 35.
Well, my kids are that age. So when I look at this,
whoa, you need a skincare line. That's what you need to do.
my mom, about 7 years into my marriage, called me and said, well, don't you think it's time for a change? And it's really different because my husband and I have decided to really keep that marriage together, and he also came from extreme brokenness as well. And it was very interesting because we were able to relate to each other, due to not only the issues we had come from, but also saying, we wanted to make a difference for ourselves. And being there, even though, we still had lots of baggage and things that we were all carrying and needing to unpack. And just like in the previous interview, I sometimes was growing more and he was still swirling the drain, or I was, swirling the drain of depression and he was going up. But it was okay because we were still always there for each other. And, and then when I realized that, my husband and I were in the military, we were posted overseas in Germany, which was quite challenging as well, because while overseas, when I had a pregnancy over there, gave birth to a daughter, where the medical system said, well, you've been on all of these medications through your life for epilepsy. You can't have a baby. And then, realizing that although the system wanted me to abort my child because of the complications in my medical file, because I didn't want to take on that responsibility on a natal base. But really, when I would call back to Canada, they were like, just ignore them. Go get yourself a pizza and enjoy your pregnancy. And it's
perspective again, right? Belief and perspective. There seems to be a theme here.
Absolutely. And then, later, I was always embraced to really taking on academics and moving myself forward to say, I want to learn more about this or this or this. And really gaining some more tools in my toolbox along that path, because I really wanted to be there. And in personality wise, I always was a helper at all levels, whether that be in the nonprofit sector or just helping in with anyone in my church or what have you. And many times this became a problem for me as well, because I would always step up to meet the demands within my society, within my volunteer perspective, or even in my employment, where I've been working in geriatric and palliative care, where the demands were quite extreme as well. And I would always step up to meet all of those demands because I felt that I needed to, and I have this ability and I can be who they want me to be, but in that helper mindset and personality, but at the same time, putting my own needs on the back burner. And unfortunately, as I continued to do that, and in the nursing field, working 16, 18-hour days, and, and then paying the biological consequence for that, where I would, end up having severe grand mal seizures, where I would go into a cyanotic state, where I stopped breathing, go into a full code, and then really have that, where I was without oxygen for quite a long period of time, ended up with frontal lobe division scarring and a brain tumor on my brainstem, and really take a look
You're
at,
like blowing my mind, girl.
and it's like really taking a look at, the rush that I felt I needed to be in. I was that, mom in the school system that was helping out. I was the permanent V on the forehead running my kids to all different programs. And I didn't just drop them off at the programs. I was the leader of the programs. It was like, I had to be that person because I needed to prove all the things in my layering of my lasagna that I was told I could not do, and rise to the, you want to bet, watch me. And along that, and eventually it caused more health concerns for me. And, and then when I came into surviving what had happened to me, my employer at the time says, well, why don't you take a couple weeks off and then come back? It really gave me that reflection, like, no, this was a major life point, and I needed to really look at, what had happened. And really take a look at what was also happening to not only myself, but also my kids. When I looked back at my own foundation and how the environment was impacting them, it was important for me to see that perspective as well. Mm-hmm. And I've changed much along that way, and then I went more into education of really looking at how to help myself with brain health issues. And, and grasping some tools to really say that, I was always, like addicted to courses and programs. I always say, I was always signing up for the next this, that, or the other thing, or whatever new was out there, and, getting another certificate in this and that. But along that journey of almost that addiction to knowledge, I was looking for answers that I could put in and utilize to help myself move, from one point to the other. And really feeling that I needed that aspect. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, I'm okay just the way I am. I don't need more and more and more and more and more. And, and then sort of sitting that, and then when COVID came as well, and I was dealing with, working my own business at the time, but I shut down the brick and mortar end of it. And then also chose to go help in the front lines again. But while helping in the front lines, I, really felt that impact of the, feeling the failure from the frontline fatigue just overwhelming us. And not only that, the emotional impacts on the workers, the short fuses that we all began to have. And again, as the stresses were increasing for me, my seizure threshold was then coming down again as well, from those extreme stresses on that front line. And so I ended up having another major seizure again. And then I sort of had to sit back and say, you know what? High stress environments are not for me. and then, and I wrote a lot about that in this book here on Heal, and really looking at the impacts of realizing that reflection. And then also with this one here on Shadows to Light, we did a fundraiser for mental health across the province, and really looked at the whole human approach to mental health, and really looking at, for me, it was really important to really see what I could utilize. And one of the important things for me was the power of my shopping cart, and realizing the nutrients I needed to get across into the blood-brain barrier, as well as to impact my mood and energy levels, and really looking at those whole areas, to the things that I could do to make a positive pivot in my life. So hopefully
girl, I'm like, whoa, mind blown. Okay, I know this is a really personal question and you don't have to ask, but maybe I can get the gist. How old are your kids? First of all, how many kids do you have?
I have two children. I have a 31-year-old daughter, and I have a 27-year-old son and a 3-year-old grandchild.
Okay, so you're definitely older than like 35. So we'll get that. I mean, you look fabulous. Yeah. I mean, and the trauma, I mean, whatever. I'm not saying trauma looks good on you, because no trauma looks good on anyone, but you've worn it well. Like because I do the little social media bites, and I was like, oh yeah, she's like probably in her 30s. She's going to be cool, whatever. like
Yeah,
mind blown.
well, and then along that journey, and I can't say that everything was good, because there was lots of times where I was stuck swirling that drain of depression for a long time,
Oh, I'm
and needing
sure.
to overcome these different things. But it's when you arise from this and you raise up and you get those different things, like, you know, even this past weekend, I was on a spiritual retreat for, you know, healing the healers of the emotional brokenness when you are always giving as a support for somebody, you know, whether it's an end of life for your family members or also in the front lines. So many times you're giving from an empty cup because you're so burnt out, and really needing to look at that for yourself before, again, more impacts to your own health journey occur.
Wow. So nutrition is the area that you're primarily sort of
Yeah,
focused on right now. This is the part of the journey that you've tapped into.
yeah, I really, you know, I went down, you know, when I first left sort of the frontline areas the first time after I had my coding and everything, I went into fitness training. I thought, oh, that would be the answer. But
There you go.
once I did that, I realized, okay, no, this is not really.
That would never be an area where I would say that's it for me. No.
Well, and it was because, you know, when we're working doing double shifts, we just aren't taking care of ourselves. So I realized that I really needed to do that. And for me, the gym end of working out really wasn't it for me. I really embraced Volks marching, which is being together with a group of people and doing long distance walking, and really not only taking in the embrace of nature, but also socializing along the way as you're gaining the exercise. And that was
What's it
important for me.
called? Boach walking?
Volks marching, and it's all over the world. You can look it up, and in all parts of the cities across Canada, US, and overseas.
Is it
And
VOKS or
VOLKS, Volks
Volks?
marching? Yes. And so this is where you can get together with a group of people and just, you know, go out and really embrace nature and do that exercising together. And you know, and I loved this wherever we were stationed all over the world. You know, it was an important part of our life.
Very interesting. That is something
Yeah,
I've never heard.
and then when I realized that, you know, working in sort of the gym and fitness end of it was not for me, I switched over into nutrition. My first stop was Canadian School of Natural Nutrition. And when I was there for 2 years, I realized at that time, first, I did not want to become a licensed dietitian. And I knew that right off the front.
Yeah, that puts restrictions on you right away.
That puts restrictions, and also because I had worked with many of them for years. And, you know, where, you know, Mrs. Smith falls and breaks her hip, you know, and needs some specific things. But, you know, you still only have the $6 to $8 a day budget. And I saw the limitations in the geriatric fields and palliative cares for people with the diaesthetics, and also for my own journey of living with epilepsy and neurological conditions, when I would need to go to a dietitian to sort of say, okay, well, I want to step away from some of the meds and look at more things I could do. A lot of it was, you know, this is the limitation we have. We did have one dietitian that was specialized here in our province, but worked specifically in the neonatal area. So I needed to go to the US to get the sort of areas that I wanted. And then in that process, I was like, I need to get more information on this. and then I went into, you know, not only areas of neurological studying, but also looking at the American Posture Institute for pain areas in the nervous system, as well as in the brain areas for Dr. Amon's focus for really looking at
love him.
Yes,
love
and
him.
so I took a lot of training through
mental
Dr.
hygiene.
Amon. Yeah, and same also with neuroencoding to really look at the aspects of our mental health thought process and how that then also impacts the biology of our brain. And really being there to unpack some of those lasagna effects and the layers that we grow up on and believe many times that we need to unpack.
I love that you use the food reference, the lasagna effect. I call it emotional plaque.
Yeah,
we have emotional plaque build up, basically, just like we get, and we just need some dental floss for that emotional plaque.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, you know, I did many different programs. Like I said, I was addicted to programs. You know, I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition down in the US, and then the Institute for Transformational Nutrition. And I just kept, you know, more and more and more and more, because I felt I needed more in my toolbox. But eventually I got to the point where I was like, okay, just hold on a second here. It's not more that you need. You already are the gift and ability within not only your story, but also because In my roles within the province of Alberta, where I live, I'm always involved with the nonprofit sector. And I believe that I survived what had happened to me because I have a gift to share for other people. Not only the mums that are, burning the candle at both ends the way I was, but also for many of us that live, all over the place, that are living with neurological conditions and many times feeling that we need to just stay home and, can't really fit into society, but really be the motivator to say, want to bet? Yes, you can. And even when you're having extreme side effects like I was on all levels of meds, there was one time in a 6-month period where my meds were changed 9 times and I had severe reactions. And eventually I just got to the point where it's like, thank you for the chemistry experiment, but I'm done.
Right, I'm not going to be your experiment anymore. But aren't our bodies amazing that we could actually digest and process all these chemicals that are given to us? Well,
I
was those who take them, but yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I was having severe reactions where the whole skin was covered in major reactions. I'd go to the pharmacy, that they would give me, a small little tube of something to put on the skin, and I would say to them, can you come and step in the room here for a sec? I'd strip off nude so they could see how bad it was everywhere on my body, and I would say, and you want me to put this little tube? Which part of the body would you like me to put it on? Yeah. And it's like really at the point of saying, what? The meds over the decades of medications and changes and the beliefs on not only the neurology and the aptologist levels, but also when I get to the point where it was like I needed to look at how to care for myself better. And along that journey, I really like to help. And right now I sit in the president's role for the Voice of Albertans Living with Disabilities, as well as in the Epilepsy Association, to really be there to not only coach and support people that are living these journeys, but also for parents. When you have a young child that is going through all levels of mental health issues, emotional health issues, or brain health issues, whether that be ADHD, whether depression, and especially in times that we're dealing with now, where people are really looking for those answers. And it doesn't always have to be meds. And as I say that, I also add on that if meds is something that you have to be on, because I've also been there as well, to make sure that you truly understand the CPS, which many times people don't. And that's the big blue book that you see in the pharmacy that has all the specifics in there on the medication for you. So for example, if the level is too high for you, what are the symptoms that you're going to see? Or if it's too low, what you're going to see? Or if you're on it for a long period of time, what are the cumulative effects of this medication? So for example, for me on neurological meds, there were ones where my hands would begin to shake as a side effect from that. But knowing what those are, and many times when we get a prescription, we have a little note and don't drive and da-da-da-da-da, we don't get all those meat and potatoes. So I always challenge people to not only understand what those side effects are, what is this med stripping from your body?
Especially if we're going to give it to kids.
And therefore, if it is stripping something, when you go to the grocery store, instead of sitting there thinking breakfast, lunch, supper, snacks, and away you go up and down the aisles, to think the same way you do with your car. You do not choose to put diesel in your gasoline engine. And for good reason. The same way when you get your grocery cart, you really need to sit and say, this is the fuel that's going into your biochemistry to help or hinder you. And if you have meds that are going to be stripping a certain nutrient out of your system, or you're not getting enough energy, or your mental health is being impacted, put things in there that are going to be able to help that. And for example, when you look at antidepressants, for example, if you feel that, the mood is going crazy in your family and, that you don't really want to sign them all up to get antidepressants, but there are things you can do in the food. A great thing I love is saffron. Take, 6 to 8 threads of saffron, put it in water like a tea, let it infuse in that tea and pour it into your stir fries that you're doing, or put it in with your rice cooker. And saffron has an amazing ability to really lower the mood and be a natural antidepressant for the family. And they don't even need to know what's happening.
I have a question. So you wrote those 2 books that you shared with us?
Yeah, I've got many different ones. And then also as well with Corey, which was this one here.
Well, okay,
Business,
so
Life,
you
and
have
Universe.
Heal, right? And you have Heal, right? Or
Yeah.
Heal, what is it?
I also write regularly for the Canadian Divorce magazine. Oh, there we go. And
well, okay, wait, here's my question though. My question is, in any of those any of the books that you have written, do you have resources like Saffron Equals, like Louise
Yeah.
Hay? Because
Yeah.
Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life is like my glossary when I work with clients who are dealing with chronic physical pain. So in these books, is there resources that we can look at and say, okay, this equals this?
There is some information that I put in there because, like, even when you think about Corey's information, it's a very small amount that we put into there, but also gives you the context to go to my website, which is healthybrain.ca.
Okay.
And also to be able to just make contact with me, because not only looking at that, another area I love to work with people, not only in the nutrition, also looking at their, biological areas, from their diet, their exercise, what the CPS says. When you think about diet, even if you're not getting enough sleep, which then contributes to a decrease in oxygen in your brain, which then impacts your thinking, your memory, concentration, and it's the same when you're looking at if you had a head trauma, like I was in 3 major car accidents, had fluid on the brain one time, and all kinds of
Are
complications.
you even really human? I just have to ask.
But it's like when you realize these types of things is that, those impacts can also contribute to, sluggish thinking, depressed area as well. And to realize that it's not necessarily your fault, but to unpack what has really happened along your life. When you're looking at psychological areas and being really able to put some strategies for those automatic negative thoughts that are happening, because that dialogue is in your mind is continually happening.
Oh, girl, I know.
Post-traumatic traumas and upbringing and body image or loss that has occurred or neglect that you felt, whether you're looking at, and then not only the social aspect of your relationships and all of these undercurrents that then impact your relationships today, both qualities
with yourself first and foremost.
And one thing I loved too, for different books was the Enneagram and looking at, personality types to be able to really look at, why am I acting this way? And like, for me, it's always been because I'm a real helper and, but in giving, I'm also choosing to not necessarily take care of myself.
To receive.
Yeah. And
we need the receivers for the givers to give to. So we need to be the giver and the receiver, right? So we can help out everyone. So actually being a receiver is a help.
And it's funny when you're always a helper for people, it's really hard to even be willing to receive. And
well, that's a whole other story that we could chat about, girl.
That's right, exactly. And how to then, feel that you have the deserving and that you are worth yourself.
Yeah, there's some hiding that happens behind the giver. Behind the giver's curtain. That's the name of a book, Behind the Giver's Curtain.
Well, I want to ask a question here in between. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, Corey, go ahead.
I want to jump in, but I want to add one thing, 2 things actually, and then I'll ask the question. But one is we had Kyle Fairley, who I think, Elise, you met in the very first bLU Talks over a year ago. He's the mind brain dude, and he practices the similar style to what Dr. Amen does. But I just wanted to say this because
was it Dr. Patrick Porter?
No, we had him on too.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we had Kyle on our influencer vault recently, and George, who we had on the day one here, Katrina and Kyle, I felt like kind of geeked out on the mind stuff, and it was like I basically got lost in the shuffle because they were so passionate about it, and I'm like they're levels above me. But one thing I wanted to say as well, just to add in, and then I have a question. The add-in is what I would say is this is like, as we all kind of, if we've dealt with something ourselves, we're kind of like, if you're an epileptic, then you would have an understanding of what those people that have epilepsy go through that other people wouldn't. So the area that I kind of have that understanding is hypochondria, where if you read about a disease, you immediately start getting the symptoms of said disease. So I want to tag onto something you said, Katrina, which is that if anybody's listening and you have hypochondria and they give you a medication, don't do what Katrina said. Don't read the side effects. Get your friend to tell you the ones you need to know. Because the catch is that is if you read the side effects, I know for me as a hypochondriac, I will get them even if I wasn't supposed to. Because my subconscious.
Or you won't take the medication, which might be a plus. No, but I'm not saying that publicly.
And then live with the side effects.
Yeah, and what I usually do is have the spouse or parent read that so that they know what to see in that person rather than the individual.
They could tell them, Here, it's a good point. If they know what to watch for, they can see if it's happening and then help them. I only say that because it's such a small percentage of the world, but I always just think if you're a hypochondriac, if you read those things, it's gonna add a whole nother element of what you're dealing with. Having said that, my question is this. So it's because you were talking about nutrition and food, and I'm on LinkedIn. I went through I'll call it a program, but with Shay Rowbottom, who we had on recently. She's a LinkedIn influencer. And I went through her program, and a guy I met there that deals with obesity for Gen X. So that's his kind of focus. And he put a thing up the other day showing, and I forget what the name of the product was, but it was one of those lose weight products like Hydroxycut or something like that. And he said that they've proven in studies that cumin, am I pronouncing that right? Cumin actually has produced similar results just having it with your food. As this thing that people are paying $50 or $100 a month.
There's probably cumin in it.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was going to ask you, is that? Have you heard that?
Yes, very much so. And not only the cumin itself, but also the turmeric blends, and then to look at those to utilize them. And then so many people don't understand the value of spices. And the unique needs to really start dabbling, start experimenting with putting spices in. And it doesn't have to be, hot like Mexican type of thing, but to utilize different things in, like even when you're thinking of, your brain health areas, there's so many unique ways that you can really learn to incorporate spices that do amazing benefits for you. And, and that could be, and if you're thinking about weight loss, like you mentioned, even just to increase your metabolism, when many people have a problem of just drinking water, don't drink enough water in a day, but to put like even a cinnamon stick into the water bottle and let that infuse. And as the cinnamon also can contribute to not only your metabolism building, but also add that flavor in to make you want to drink more water as well.
My go-to is, ready? A quarter of a teaspoon of turmeric, an eighth of a teaspoon of cinnamon, mixed in honey, like you stir it together, right? So you create this like paste, and then like maybe a half a cup of hot water, and you create this elixir, or you can make it as in a tea, like twice a day. And I'm telling you, anybody with chronic pain, anybody who's got fatigue, anybody who's got like weight issues or feeling heavy in their mind and then in their body, game changer.
Oh, absolutely.
Cinnamon, turmeric.
How much
cinnamon.
Of each?
I do like, you could do a quarter of a teaspoon and then an eighth of cinnamon, because cinnamon can get really bitter.
Yeah, and I put it also into a lot of different things. Like even when you think of
tablespoon and a tablespoon of honey. Sorry, just a tablespoon of honey, and you make the paste before you add the hot water, because otherwise the cinnamon and everything floats to the top. And then you add the hot water and you stir it in. I usually do a cup and I sip it. Or if you're just really quick and you want out, you want the honey to melt the cinnamon and the turmeric, and it's a game changer.
And you
boost your immune system, everything.
And when you're choosing honeys, also to be aware
Local.
of the different quality honeys, and even if you're going to the farmers market, to check on if they are spraying the bees, because many of them also feed the bees, and they're feeding them liquid sugar. Versus them going out and doing collecting. There's a lot of different things about honey that you need to be aware of as well. And, and really understand those nutrients in honey. And when you look at some of the Australian and New Zealand honey options that are available, many of them are also not only going for things like the different medicinal properties in the flowers that are around there, but also the Manuka honeys that are
I was going to say Manuka is what I prefer to use, or something local organic, especially if you have allergies.
Exactly.
And really good for allergies. So
yeah. And
we'll have a lot to chat about.
Yeah. So there's lots of these types of things. And when I do assessments on people to really see what their issue is, to be able to then let them understand why things are so valuable to be placed in their grocery cart, and based on each individual areas. And that could be something as simple when we're dealing with women in hormones that, believe that, spinach salad is really good for them, when spinach salad is not necessarily the best thing for them, especially in the raw state. It needs to be lightly steamed for women in those stages. So there's lots of different things to look at, and
so how can we find out more? And do you have an assessment online or something that somebody can go to just to kind of, if they're just getting their feet wet, so to speak, somebody who's beginning to recognize the value of?
Yeah, so when they go onto my website, they can download a brain health shopping list.
Which is
Just
what? Brainhealth.com?
Brainhealth.ca. I mean, yeah, so look at it, healthybrain.ca.
Healthybrain.ca. Okay.
And then you can download a shopping list to just start off with, looking at some things that you can utilize in your grocery cart, even before you have any assessments or anything, to really say that, if we're dealing with different types of things, are we really using food that is going to be fuel to allow us to start going down a healing journey?
I love it. Are you familiar with Anthony Williams?
Yes.
I love him. I do.
Yeah.
He's like brilliant. And what is it? The spirit of compassion.
Yeah, exactly. And I love also looking at oops, let me just see if I can put this in proper. When your body says no, the cost of hidden stress. And, the impacts of really looking at so many different things of how your body reacts to your environment and learning to see what's happening so that you can make an adjustment, and then also seeing the physical and emotional changes from small little tweaks that you can make.
That book is one Shelley has right in her night table right now. So she's just started reading. She's been a fan of Dr. Gabor forever, but she's just reading the book now. I was going to ask you as well, what are your thoughts? And Lisa, I'm going to put what I wrote down as your mixture on the screen. Let me know if I got something wrong. But okay. Katrina, I wanted to ask you, and at least you can jump in on this as well if you want. But when you talked about the different spices and the different things we can add to our life, the thing I always think about is it's like if you give somebody 5 websites, they'll probably go to 0. And so my concern is if people don't know what spices to take, or think I have to take 1 million of them, then they won't take any. But how do we avoid overwhelm whenever we might read, this spice is good for this, and you read like 100 things and go, I have all of that, so I need to take all of those spices. What do you recommend people do? Or are there some core spices we always should have? Or I just love to give
absolutely.
People get overwhelmed.
So I always like to start out with very simple ones that anyone and everyone can utilize and get, whether you're in a big town or some small little town in the middle of nowhere, that you should be able to find everywhere. And that is number 1, ginger. Ginger for looking at the impacts of your stomach, whether you're dealing with complications in your digestive system, also for the benefits as well as how it then helps the brain and as well in many different areas. And then also looking at cinnamon that you can add into, you're going to make oatmeal, put lots of cinnamon in there. Or if you're not making oatmeal, you're using chia seed, which is a very high in protein and also helps the digestive system. When you add chia seed, 4 tablespoons of chia seed into, let's say, a cereal bowl of water, let it swell all up, and then add your cinnamon or in ginger, what have you, in there. In the process of in the chia seed being gelatinous, as it goes through the digestive system, it's also going to absorb toxins and also improve your digestive ability as well as provide protein. Then the next one I would say that I love to use all the time is going to be not only the turmeric that I put in regularly, but when you're going to use things like this, use it so that it'll be an interesting way for you to experience it. So for example, if you're going to be putting some rice in your rice cooker, add some in there, add some ginger in there, add some turmeric in there, and just let it happen. It'll all stir up for itself. Or, choosing things that are really easy for you to use. A really important one for brain health is basil, and using that as well. And, and I have a lot of the information on this that I sit down with each individual, depending on what they're dealing with. Just small little things that they can do to really utilize things and to make things more interesting for the kids. Because, and you can't take kids that have been, used to eating like McDonald's and all kinds of other fast food stuff, especially when we're dealing with a lack of income. And if the income has drastically changed, like there's been a family meltdown and destruction, and now you don't have the funds that you did before, and the kids are getting used to lower quality foods because of the cost, especially now as food's going up. Utilize programs within your community. I know in our Edmonton and surrounding area, we have things called the Food for Good program, where you can go to different areas in the community and go for, cooking together, getting together, that food is donated, and you just sort of, spend some time and socialize and cook together so that the cost isn't as expensive. And in that program, we were paying like $5 to make 2 different recipes for 8 adult servings of each recipe for $5. And there are many different programs like this throughout the communities. Look in for some of the ways that you can not only, when you think of if you've got a farmer's market in your community.
We have a program in the States. You can use your EBT and they'll actually,
exactly.
they'll double your dollars.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's a website, a .org website for the United States for different states. So when you use your EBT, you can go and they'll give you double the amount in chits or whatever, like little tokens, and you can go and buy 3 times the amount of food at these farmers markets.
That's right. And even with the farmers markets, if Katrina was the farmer and I picked carrots or beets today and I was selling them, if I wasn't able to sell them, I can't go put them back in the land. So then what happens afterwards? Many of that is then put to different donations within the communities to be at a fraction of the cost. Utilize some of these options for yourself.
Back to the cinnamon, just like a little tip. For me, when I drink coffee, because I got into mud water, which I'm not doing.
I know.
Drinking mud water, but it's awesome. It's kind of like chai tea, but like the coffee version. But I use a pressed can or whatever. But just take a little bit of cinnamon and put it in the grinds of your coffee before you actually make the coffee. A lot of people put the cinnamon after they make the coffee. They'll put it in, and then you get that film on top. But if you actually put this, sprinkle a little cinnamon and a little, because it does get bitter. If you sprinkle a little cinnamon on the coffee grinds before you brew your coffee, you got your cinnamon, and it adds a little flavor instead of those artificial, hazelnut flavors and cinnamon flavors. That's all artificial. So,
and the other thing I would say that's really important about spices when you're choosing to buy them, the spices that you have presently in your house right now, use them up. But when you run out, organic. So I don't want you just to throw stuff out. I suggest that you choose organic spices to replace each one. And the reason why is because majority of the spices that are in your cupboards probably right now have been radiated for shelf life. And in the process of that radiation process, a lot of the qualities of the nutrients can be lost as well.
And it really isn't that much more for the amount of spice you use. If you spend 50 cents more or 75 cents more, or even $1 more for a jar of a little thing of organic powdered turmeric.
And then also in the fresh parts of your grocery store, you can see the actual fresh herbs and spices as well that are not only in the fresh state, but also ones that have been chopped up and are in jars that are kept refrigerated for you as well. Like, for example, chopped up garlic pieces or dill or what have you, that you can put in the refrigerator and really utilize some of that as well.
You have been amazing. I'm mind blown. I can't even digest it all. I got to go back and listen to this a couple of times for sure.
Well, and it's important to realize, when you're caring for your children, the teen who's going through things, or even
story, just you by yourself, without what you do and all your spices, you are amazing, incredible. Just the journey that you've been on, and how bright your light is right now.
Well, you really have to choose to be that way, because it is so easy and so slippery to go down that swirling drain of depression. And those things can happen so many times, even for myself, for example.
You didn't get a being human free card. Come on.
No, even when I think of, if I had a seizure that occurred at work, and then I would have to go on short-term disability or long-term disability, or waiting for government assistance. For those of us that are having different types of special needs, many times we're on limited assistance by the government. But then how do you utilize the things that you need to remain healthy when you're dealing with some of these places? And same in the US, if you're having to pay out of your pocket for your prescriptions, when I would work in the soup kitchens in the city, and it would be you'd have many people there that,
I can afford. My mind. They have so much organic stuff there. They have so many resources. I used to work at a kitchen. I managed it part-time. And they would give me the organic stuff because people who came there weren't educated enough to recognize the value of. They're like, what's this organic quinoa? What's this? So they'd be like, somebody needs to take it. But there's a lot of organic produce. There's a lot of organic dry goods. There's a lot of organic canned goods that actually show up at these. And
another thing I suggest to people a lot of times when they're going grocery shopping is choose some type of vegetable that you've never tried before, a new color, a new something different, just to experience it and say, I like this or I don't. But, even to just say, there's so many different things that are red. And a lot of times I would ask my kids when they were younger, go choose some nice colored veggie that you want to have into the shopping cart.
Well, that's fun. Okay, so you posted the resource where we could find more information, right?
Yeah, it's
Did you put that on?
healthybrain.ca. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Corey, are you with
healthybrain.ca.
us?
Yeah, I have it posted in the comments as well.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we can find Katrina. And Katrina, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, do you have ways to do that via phone or social media or whatever?
You can catch me on Facebook for Katrina Breau. You can catch me on for my phone. You can always give me a call anytime. It's 780-686-7949.
Okay, you're gonna have to put that in the comments because I already forgot.
Yeah. But,
and Katrina, before we let you go, I'm going to do a little hands-on interactive tapping session, and I call it the tapping rant because I'm like a tapping ranter. And so if you find something that's showing up in your life right now, or you've got some pain that you'd like to lessen or even get rid of in a very short amount of time, hang out for a little bit longer, because when we're finished here with this beautiful, amazing interview, I'm going to go for it, right, Corey?
100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Sounds wonderful.
And Katrina, this has been an absolute pleasure, as I knew it would be. With your permission, I do this often. I don't want it to be a slight on anybody I don't say this with, but when I say it, it's like, we need to bring this person back on in one format or another. And I have multiple podcasts and I have different platforms. Elise has a show as well. So I say it sincerely. We'll call it a to be continued and look to bring you on in the future, because I know we barely scratched the surface. And there's some directions I'd love to go further into some of the different areas around health and wellness as well, which might be a good fit for my show, my podcast. So I just want to thank you, salute you, honor you, and let you know we're going to wave the flag for you and tell people about all the great things you're doing. And on top of all that, thanks for being such an important part of the Blue Talks community as well. So I just want to put that out there before we let you run.
It was great meeting you.
Great meeting you too. And thank you so much, Corey, for all that you're doing for that positive ripple that's out there. And, and also congratulations for the award you just got from Your Holistic Earth. And yes, so I'm on the same situation. So good. I look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day, guys.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Katrina. We'll let you run to the backstage area, but feel free to follow along with Elisa's tapping before we all say our goodbyes until tomorrow. Awesome. So, Elise, I'll let you take it away.
Whoa. Can I just say, whoa, she's like, what she's gone through, okay, I need to reevaluate. I mean, everybody's stuff is everybody's stuff, but that was a lot of stuff to go through, a lot of hurdles, a lot of jumps, a lot of flipping her script. I mean, talk about, she's like the living, breathing, flip your script poster woman who looks like she's 30 something, but's been married for 35 years. So I didn't even ask her age, but I really, really want to know. I know it's not that important because she looks amazing, but thank you so much, Katrina, for sharing your journey with us. Okay, so for those of you that are familiar and have heard of EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, or tapping, just bear with me for a couple of seconds because I'm going to explain quickly what EFT is. So EFT is like acupuncture and psychology got together and threw out the needles. It's the best way I could describe it. So with EFT, we're working on the meridians, which I call are like the wiring in our house. And there are very specific points, like a plug where you would plug in your appliance to the electricity that creates a charge. So there's very specific points on the body that when we tap, we're actually sending surges through the wiring or the meridians in our body to move these blocks, just like acupuncture will with a needle to move the chi. But the difference is we're actually using that stored emotion, that old emotion, or the feeling that's coming up for us now as the needle, right? Because really that's what it is. So our emotion, if energy had a designated driver, this is how I like to explain it. If our energy in our body had a designated driver, it would be an emotion, right? Mm-hmm. If we're in love and we fall in love or we're excited, our energy shifts. We can feel the surge through our body. We could feel the heart pound when we're scared, right? So the emotion is the designated driver, or the DD, of our energy. Well, what happens is, and we've been talking about this for the past 3 days, and we'll continue to talk about this during the week, is that we have old thoughts and beliefs and habits that stem from way back. Some say 0 to 7, I say conception to 7, but they continue throughout our lives, and they build up what I call emotional plaque. And when we have plaque buildup, we have a blocked energy. Our energy doesn't flow, right? When we have plaque in our mouth, right, it creates disease. So when we have emotional plaque buildup, I look at EFT or tapping as dental floss for emotional plaque. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to remove some of the emotional plaque that's causing the challenge that's showing up in your life, whether it's a relationship or not enough money or I don't like myself or you're in chronic pain. But here's the thing we talked about with the book. What is it? The Mindset Code?
Yes.
Wasn't that the book? And who's the author? Give her a plug.
Happy Pidwell.
Okay. What Corey just said. Who Corey just said. So we want to start with one thing. Because if you're in chronic pain and you have pain everywhere and you're like, I just want all my pain to go away, it might, but it's overwhelming. If you have more than one thing going on in your life right now and you just want it all to go away, it's hard to have that streamlined focus. So I want you to pick one area of your body if you have pain in your body, and I want you to give it a number, 1 to 10, 10 being the most painful. Okay? Now, if you have a situation in your life that's showing up, okay, that's constantly showing its head, even though you're like, I'm not going to do that again. I won't respond that way, or it's not going to bother me, or I'm going to look at myself in the mirror and say, I am rich and I am awesome, but you don't really believe it. You're going to feel it in your gut, in your chest, in your throat, or in your head, or more than one of those places. And I wanted you to give that feeling a number. Okay? So if you have chronic pain, somewhere in your body pain, pick an area, give it a number from 1 to 10. If you have a situation or a thing that shows up, I want you to give that a number and be aware, right? This is about body awareness. Where is it showing up in your body? Now there's a second number, okay? And the second number is how it makes you feel. So if you have physical pain in your body, okay, and you've already given it a number, I want you to now give it a second number. How frustrating is it? How disappointing is it? How resentful are you to whoever or whatever because it's happening to you, right? How depressed are you? How fearful are you? And here's a tip. I bet that number is going to be higher than the pain itself. Okay? Usually the number's higher. And then with the situation, you might feel it in your gut, in your chest, in your throat, or in your head. But how do you feel in relationship to it? Insecure? Unhappy? Pissed off and angry? And I want you to give that a number. So you're each going to have 2 numbers, whether you're dealing with pain or a painful situation. Okay. And you could share it in the comments if you want, because I guarantee you the number is going to change. And the location of the pain might change. And the location of where this frustration is showing up might change. Okay. So I'm going to go through the tapping points very quickly, and you can all follow with me. Okay. Anybody who wants more information, I have actually created a numbered chart with each of these points, okay, numbered with what emotions and what energy these points release. And once those negative emotions or those adverse emotions and energy is released, what it's actually you're able to fill into that space. Okay, so if you need more information, you can reach me at Flip Your Script with Elise on Facebook. I'll just put all that information in. I won't plug it yet, but I have the information available, and I also have an emotional plaque assessment, so you can find out where some of this emotional plaque may have originated, and we can talk a little bit more about how to really just get rid of all the plaque so you can move forward. All right, so I'm going to take my glasses off, even though you're all blurry, but at least we can get to the points. Okay, so we're going to start at the side of the hand, and this is what we call the setup. Okay, so we're going to set up the statement. Now, because I don't know who's watching and what your challenge is, right, or the things that are showing up in your life, I'm going to call it stress and pain. Okay, because it's causing stress, and the stress is probably causing the pain. But you're going to know what the thing is, you're going to know where your pain is, but I'm going to say all this stress and pain. So it's going to be more general, and I want you to plug in your own mind what that would be. So you're going to follow me, basically. It's kind of like do as I say and do as I do. Okay, so we're going to start at the side of the hand, and I'm just going to go through the points right now, and you can follow along with me. Corey, you can follow along with me as well. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to start at the side of the hand. This is one of the points, okay? We're going to go to the eyebrow, and I'm not even going to say anything yet because I'm going to, we'll have dialogue. And then we're going to start at the top of the eyebrow is the next point. We're going to go to the side of the eye. And remember, each of these tapping points create a surge, move the energy. They move specific emotions and energy in and allow certain specific emotions and emotion and energy in once we release the old. So under the eye is the next point. Under the nose, we go to the chin, collarbone, like right below the collarbone. We go under the arm. I do one side. You could do both, but I look like a monkey and I don't like it. And then top of the head is the last point. And top of the head. Okay, I know we didn't actually have dialogue, but I want you to go back and check and see if you feel calmer already, if the thing has shifted and the numbers moved, and if the pain has moved or even become less, and just give everything a new number. Okay, so I'm going to start my rant, and I want you to actually verbalize and repeat after me. It's going to be very generic. When I work with clients one-on-one, obviously it's more specific. I am able to tune in more and become more intuitive with what's going on, to be able to find out where this emotional plaque originated from and, you know, be able to delete some of that. So we're going to go to the side of the hand and we're going to say even though. And Corey, you can kind of repeat after me so everybody else does. So we're going to say even though I have this stress and pain.
I have this stress and pain.
And it's holding me back.
And it's holding me back.
From being who I think I want to be.
From being who I think I want to be.
Which is holding me back.
Which is holding me back.
From feeling happier in my life.
From feeling happier in my life.
And I don't like being held back.
And I don't like being held back.
And I really want to feel happier and more content in my life.
And I really want to feel happier and more content in my life.
And I think this thing, whatever it is,
is
holding me from that.
Or
Or maybe I'm using it as the reason for me not feeling that way.
Or maybe I'm using it as the reason for me not feeling that way.
So even though I have this stress and pain,
and
I've had it for far too long, I'm starting to recognize the value of loving, trusting, supporting, and accepting myself more unconditionally, with or without this pain and stress
with or without this pain and stress
that I think is holding me back. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go to the eyebrow and we're going to say all this pain and stress. And the story attached. We're going to go to the side of the eye. All this pain and stress. And the pain attached. And the frustration attached. And the disappointment attached. Under the eye, all this pain and stress. And the judgment attached. And honestly, the judgment feels worse than the thing itself. Under the nose, all this judgment of whatever the thing is probably holding me back just as much as the thing. Right, chin. Because if I could just allow the pain and whatever this thing is that's causing me stress, if I could just allow the pain and whatever this thing is that's causing me the stress, just be without judging it, how would I feel then? Collarbone, all this pain and the things that are causing me the stress. I've been blaming for holding me back. I've really been blaming it from holding me back. I've been believing that it's what's holding me back.
I've been believing that it's what's holding me back.
Under the arm. So this thing that's not working,
So this thing that's not working,
this thing that I haven't achieved,
this thing that I haven't achieved,
the goal that I haven't reached,
the goal that I haven't reached,
the pain that I've been chronically feeling,
the pain that I've been chronically feeling,
I've been using, or I've been believing
I've been believing
is the thing that's holding me back.
is the thing that's holding me back.
Top of the head, this thing that's holding me back.
This thing that's holding me back.
This feeling of being held back
This feeling of being held back
is holding me back.
is holding me back.
Eyebrow. So what if
So what if
I could let that story go?
I could let that story go?
Side of the eye. What if I can, for a moment,
I can, for a moment,
let the pain
let the pain
and whatever the situation is
and whatever the situation is
go
go
as the reason for being or feeling like I'm not enough?
as the reason for being or feeling like I'm not enough.
Under the eye. The story,
The story,
the pain and the stress.
the pain and the stress.
What if I let every cell in my body know
What if I let every cell in my body know
that I no longer need the pain
that I no longer need the pain
and I no longer need the story
and I no longer need the story
for me to recognize
for me to recognize
that nothing's really holding me back
that nothing is really holding me back
unless I believe it is?
unless I believe it is.
Under the nose. So I'm letting every cell in my body know
So I'm letting every cell in my body know
that I'm open
that I'm open
to changing the way I believe
to changing the way I believe
and changing the way that I feel
and changing the way that I feel
in relationship to the pain and the stress.
in relationship to the pain and stress.
Chin. I'm open.
I'm open.
I'm open to being open.
I'm open to being open.
I'm ready to be ready
I'm ready to be ready
to feel better
to feel better
or to feel the way that I want to feel
or to feel the way that I want to feel
right now.
right now.
I might not know how,
I might not know how,
but I'm ready to be ready.
but I'm ready to be ready.
And I'm open to be ready.
And I'm open to be ready.
Collarbone. So I'm letting the story go
So I'm letting the story go
just for right now
just for right now
as I'm ready to be ready.
as I'm ready to be ready.
And I'm open to be ready
And I'm open to be ready
to feel the way I want to feel
to feel the way I want to feel
right now.
right now.
Okay, so stop and take a deep breath and let it out. And then let's check back in to the thing, if you could even remember it. To the pain. And I want you to it's your own personal journey. So see if you feel a little bit calmer. If your relationship to whatever this story was or the thing, the stress was, does it feel differently? Do you feel less attached? Do you feel less of a victim to it? Corey, I don't know. Let's use you as an example since you're right here, front and center.
Yeah, well, I'm calm enough that I could go to sleep. But,
Okay, so you want to drink water. Let me just tell you this before we go. Drinking a lot of water and maybe even taking a 5-minute nap or just resting for 5 minutes is going to help. And that means when you feel that way, that means that we have moved energy. It's like a workout. It's like an emotional, energetic workout, right? When you go to the gym, you need to take a deep breath. You need to rehydrate. So the same holds true when we do energy work like this. So your body is letting me know, and your response is letting me know that something's working. So how do you now feel in relationship to it, like mentally, emotionally, physically?
I think just calm. And to add on to what you said, my new thing that I've been doing the last little bit in the office here is starting each day with a meditation and then finishing. So I will be taking that sort of break. I'm a little bit ahead time-wise of you and even more ahead than Katrina. So I'm near the end of my day. Mm-hmm. And so when I end my day, I'll be taking like a 15-minute meditation, which will be like my nap. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, just calmer is the best way I can describe it.
So think about the thing, whatever this thing was that you gave a number to. So there's a couple of results that we can get. Either the number goes down, and the relationship that you had to whatever this thing is more like you're looking at it from outside of it, as opposed to being the emotional or physical star of that situation or that experience, right?
Yeah.
It can move, right? So if you were frustrated or disappointed, and you can now be angry, right? Or feel more righteous about it, right? If it's physical, the pain could move. And somewhere in our tapping rant, as I call it, kind of like an improv rant, your pain could have spiked, right? Something could have triggered a spike in it. It could move into a different location. The number could go down, or nothing changes. And if nothing changes, there means that there's something called polarity reversal, which goes deeper, which means that emotional plaque is really down in there. Okay. And that's okay. Just lets me, as the practitioner, right, and the coach, know that there's another area that we have to work on, and there's points for that. And we can then bring that together so there is no more polarity reversal. And then we start again, and then we can really work on that from the beginning. So if you have any questions, if you want to have a conversation, feel free to reach out to me. I am on social media. You can find me at eliserothman.com. You can find me right here. Well, right on the bLU Talks Flip Your Script page in the group. Feel free to message me there, and I'll be happy to have a conversation, send you a little bit more information. And no matter what you're doing, whether it's equine therapy, whether you're addressing the nutritional state of your being, always being able to remove that emotional plaque is a compliment. It always is a compliment to anything that you're doing, and it's necessary. Because if the root of what's happening is lying in emotional plaque or old emotional beliefs, you can't eat yourself out of that. You can't take enough cinnamon, enough turmeric, or enough ginger to release that relationship that you have to these old memories and these old stories. So I intend that everybody feels a little calmer, a little bit lighter. I adore all of you, whether I can see you or not, whether you're watching it live or the replay. Corey, you're awesome and amazing, and I love being here with you.
You are awesome, my friend, as well. And like I said, I just feel really serene. So it's like a fitting way to sign off for the day today before joining.
I think maybe we should just do a tapping rant after the end of all of our sessions. Why not? If we can leave people feeling lighter, I mean, really, anything that we're going for, no matter what it looks like, is a sense of relief.
Mm-hmm. I'd be up for it. I'll just put it
I'm in.
Okay,
I'm in.
Let's make it happen. So thank you so much, as always, Elise. Thank you to our amazing guests. I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll mention it again. The bLU Talks book series, we're working on the New Year's one. So if somebody's listening here and they're saying, you know what, I'd like to have my story in a book. I'd like to, well, you're already in. So I'd like to have my story in a book. I'd like to have something I think a lot of people don't connect with as well when it comes to your story in a book is it's immortalizing your story for future generations. You know, so your grandchildren's grandchildren could be reading your story because you decided to put it in a book. And so that's, you know, beyond the benefits of being an international best-selling author and all the other great kudos and things that come with that. So if that's something that sort of gets your juices flowing, then reach out to me and let me know. Again, we're working on the latest one now. We always end up having a full book, so no worries either way. But if it does speak to you, reach out and let me know. But in the interim, you know, keep joining us here for bLU Talks because, you know, this is all free. We bring it to basically your living room if you're watching in the right way. You know, if you're watching, some people can be watching this on the TV screen in the living room.
On your phone, in the car, during your break.
Anywhere, like on your laptop, on your iPad. And so we try to bring this to you free and try to make some magic happen. And so thanks for joining us again today. Thanks for joining us every time. And thanks for joining us all week here and in the replay. If you're watching, we don't forget that everybody in the replay makes an impact as well. So thanks for watching us on the replay. Thanks for sharing. And as always, Elise, thanks for joining me. So just
tomorrow.
Today.
Yes. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Corey, I'm going to hop off because I got some stuff to do, but I will see you tomorrow.
I'm doing the same. Thanks, my friend. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow.